Hi, everyone. It's Sophia Melonē, the Debt Demolisher, here to bring you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you manage your financial baggage the right way. What an honor and privilege it is to be before you all for yet another episode drop here on the Debt Demolisher TV, where we're having our night side chat talking all about student loans. And we're talking about the public service loan forgiveness as well as the one-time debt relief. So as you come into the room, I'm answering questions from those who are on TikTok, as well as answering questions related to those who have sent me DMs on my Instagram. And so with that, we're going to have a full-blown conversation around the public service loan forgiveness because the limited time waiver is approaching very, very, very soon. I want to be able to show you all as much information as I can and to give you the knowledge that you need so that you can be able to take action on that. So popping over onto TikTok up first, the first question that we received inside of the room is related to the one-time debt relief. So we're going to be doing a two-part kind of tandem conversation. As questions come in related to the one-time debt relief, I will be addressing those, as well as when conversations or questions come in around the public service loan forgiveness limited waiver, I will be addressing those as well. So the first question we have is, I completed the beta application and received an email confirmation, but I get emails to complete. So if you are someone who has already completed the beta application, or meaning you completed the one-time debt relief application during the beta launch period, and you receive your confirmation from the Department of Education indicating that your request or your submission was received, but you're still receiving emails regarding the request, you want to look at who the email is from. So if the email is actually from the Department of Education, it could be that you are getting the communications as a result of you signing up to receive information about the one-time debt relief and any news related to that. So if you're already on their subscription page, meaning you subscribe to their email list, you're still going to be getting notifications about signing up and about applying for the one-time debt relief. If you're receiving another notification, maybe indicating, like someone else has already said as well, that they have received a notice from the Department of Education letting them know that they don't have to do anything, their relief is going to be automatic, whatever the case may be. They are letting people know that, hey, if you fall under the pool of people where we already have your information, meaning we have your income information, as well as, of course, they already have your FAFSA information or your loan type of information, that there's nothing that you need to do per se, because from the beginning, they've indicated that the relief was going to be automatic for those who they had the information for. But in order to cover all bases, they were encouraging all federal student loan holders to go ahead and submit an application just so that no one gets missed. So if you received a notice indicating that you need to apply, you want to make sure that it's coming from a governing, authoritative, valid email address. So a .gov email address, whether it be the Department of Education, whether it be the Federal Student Aid Office, whether it be any other education entity, or maybe even other nonprofit organizations that you may be on their email list and they're letting you know about it. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to the web address, or not even the web address, but the email address that it's coming from. Because if it's not a web address that you're familiar with, or if it's not an email address that you're familiar with, I would place so much caution on clicking on things out of emails because of the scams that have been going on around student loans. Speaking of scams, let me just say this really quickly. If you are someone who has been a victim of student loan related scams, I want to ask you to please reach out to me. Now, why am I asking you to reach out to me related to this? Because there are so many people who have become victims of this very conversation, believing that someone is saying that they're going to get them out of this particular student loan debt, or if they sign up for this, they'll be able to negotiate specific things on their behalf, but not realizing and recognizing that it is a scam and it is a way for them to try to get your information so that they can either steal your information from you or get you to pay certain things or provide your bank account information, and then they wipe you out. So I do not want you to fall victim to any of the scams. If you were a victim of a scam, if you know someone who was a victim of a student loan scam, I want to encourage you to ask you to reach out to me. So I would love to be able to connect you with someone who could possibly get you some assistance in getting your story shared, getting it visible so that you can be able to at least try to get something back as a result of the scam that you've endured. So I'm not saying like this is going to be any promises, but if you know that you were a victim of student loan related scams, I have a connect who is interested in basically getting stories from those who have been impacted in order to spread the awareness, but then also hoping that maybe some other folks who are involved could be able to get some type of relief or alleviation from that. So you can reach out to me on my Instagram, Debt Demolisher TV. Share with me your story, your contact information, high level, if you want to be able to do that, and I can get you connected. Want to make sure though that only if you were a victim of student loan related scams. So student loan related scams only. So don't fall for that. Next question I have on the screen is, if I'm a co-signer for student loans, can we both sign up for the, I'm going to call it the one-time debt relief? I am going to say it depends. So when it comes to the one-time debt relief, it's based on the original borrower. So if you are a co-signer, you are essentially the backup person for the original borrower, if that makes sense. So it's not necessarily about, it's based on the borrower. So if you aren't the student borrower, then unfortunately you shouldn't be the one to apply for the one-time debt relief. The person who was the student borrower should. And then of course, as the relief gets applied, or if their balances get alleviated in full, once that loan is resolved, then it's no longer going to be, it's going to end up being a closed account on your credit report once that loan has been satisfied and has been paid in full, even though that you are a co-signer on that. But it's based on the student loan borrower per se. So whoever the loan is in, whoever the loan is in. How about New York? I do not believe that New York was one of the states that is taxable. So some people are asking right now around which states are taxable for the one-time debt relief forgiveness. I know for sure North Carolina is one. I know for sure, I want to say Minnesota is one, but there are about 4 states, or maybe it could be more than that, but I believe it's 4 confirmed, and there may be 2 or 3 others that are still pending and trying to decide what the outcome will be. But if you just Google states that are taxing the forgiveness, or if you could check with your Department of Revenue's website in the state that you live in, it will tell you that. So if you Google the state that you live in, Department of Revenue, and then type in student loan forgiveness, more than likely something is going to come up from that state.gov site that will take you to what their requirements are and how they would treat the forgiveness. So that's one thing that you can do to check with your states, but it's not many. It's not many. T-Bone says, yes, you are on point. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. If I own a nonprofit but take no salary, do I qualify for PSLF? Thank you so much for introducing the conversations around PSLF, because that's what we want to talk about. That's what we want to talk about. So when you are considering your employment eligibility for public service loan forgiveness, and public service loan forgiveness is a specific benefit that is available for those who have direct loans, and direct loans are William D. Ford loans, which are federal loans. And you will be able to know what kind of loans you have if you look into your FSA ID account. log into your loan details and you'll be able to see what your loan type is. If it says direct, then that means you have a direct loan. Under the direct loan program, they have a special benefit, which was established in October of 2007. So October 1, 2007, the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program was created. And this is serving as a direct loan benefit to allow those who work in public service to be able to receive complete forgiveness of their direct loans balances after 120 qualified payments. So in order for you to have this qualified payments, you have to be making your student loan payments while you are working with a qualified employer. So your qualified employer would be any federal government entity, any state or local government entity, any tribal government entity, as well as any nonprofit organizations that are a 501c3, as well as any nonprofit organizations that do not have a 501c3 status. However, they provide one of the qualifying services that would deem them to be eligible or to be considered a qualified employer. So if that's the case for you, then any payments that you've made on your federal student loans that are direct loans can be able to count towards the 120. And then once you get to 120, that loan balance will be forgiven based on the loan types that you have. So under this limited waiver, they are allowing those who have Perkins loans or FFEL loans to be able to consolidate it into a direct consolidation loan in order to not lose the counts that they've already have on their FFEL loans or on their Perkins loans that have been consolidated after the fact. So as long as you consolidate your FFEL loans and your Perkins loans into a direct consolidation loan for public service loan forgiveness purposes only, as long as you do that by October 31st, 2022, then you're eligible for public service loan forgiveness, then your counts, all of those loans will be able to be considered for public service loan forgiveness once you have reached 120. So the question that came up on the screen is, if I own a nonprofit but take no salary, do I qualify for PSLF? The stipulation for being considered an employee is you have to receive a W-2. So you cannot, because when if you work for a nonprofit, right? So that would mean that you would be receiving some form of compensation. So you would have to be W-2. You can't be a 1099 you cannot be a 1099 for a government entity. You cannot be a 1099 for a nonprofit organization. You have to receive a W-2 working income, because they have to be able to confirm your service as an employee there, paid employee there. So that's what you want to take into consideration when it comes to public service loan forgiveness, as it relates to public service loan forgiveness. I want to make sure that I address a couple of things real quick, and then I want to jump into what I wanted to cover related to a lot of the questions that folks asked that I didn't get to yesterday. Part of it was about the cancellation status that some folks are seeing under their MOHELA profile. Also about the treatment of getting federal aid after bankruptcy, and then also about faxing in your forms. I got a great question from someone through IG related to that. But I see some good questions coming in. So let me go ahead and answer this real quick, and then I'll go into what we wanted to cover. It says, I'm a little confused. Are you talking about two different public service loan forgivenesses? Yes. So the first conversation I was talking about was the one-time debt relief, because the questions came in. And then what I was just answering right now was public service loan forgiveness. That's a part of the reason why I don't like to mix the conversations. But when people pop inside of the room, they tend to ask questions about the one-time debt relief while we're trying to have conversations around public service loan forgiveness, because it's close to the deadline. So just so everyone knows, when I say one-time debt relief, that is completely separate. That is completely different. It has no bearing, no has nothing to do with the public service loan forgiveness. They're completely independent of each other. So I know that people are just asking a lot of questions here, so I don't want anyone to get confused. How do I sign up? You go to studentaid.gov/one-time debt relief. You can apply now. The application is still available. So if you go to studentaid.gov/debt-relief/application, it will take you to where you could sign up for the one-time debt relief. If you work for a qualified employer and you believe that you are eligible for public service loan forgiveness, you will go to studentaid.gov/PSLF to look at the requirements there. Okay. So let's go into public service loan forgiveness. Public service loan forgiveness. We're going to talk about that for right now. Public service loan forgiveness for right now. I know you all have questions about the one-time debt relief, but because we are under limited time constraints as it relates to the public service loan forgiveness limited waiver, I want to make sure that we are talking about that, because for the one-time debt relief, you have time to submit that. The cutoff for the applications for the one-time debt relief is December 31st, 2023, whereas the cutoff for the limited time waiver for the public service loan forgiveness is October 31st, 2022. So I want everyone who could possibly be eligible for public service loan forgiveness to do what they need to do to take advantage of that. Do what they need to do to take advantage of that. So let's talk about some of the questions that we receive. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but I want to first start with a few things. First, I want to address the question that someone asked about the Fresh Start program. You know, when that happens, typically when you're in default, you're not able to receive any form of student aid. So they kind of temporarily place you out of the ability to be able to receive aid when you're in default. And more than likely, if you're under bankruptcy, that means your loans were in default. So the Department of Education recently, maybe earlier this year, around in April, they began an initiative called the Fresh Start program. And what the Fresh Start program was designed to do was to help borrowers who were in default to be able to receive financial aid to go back to school. So someone asked a question during the live that we had on Wednesday, and I think someone else asked a similar question in a prior live, and I really want to make sure that I address this. And they asked the question as to whether let me see if I can pull it up exactly. If I am someone whose student loans were under bankruptcy, will the Fresh Start program allow me to go back to school? So the Fresh Start program, essentially, and you have to be considered an eligible borrower in default. And I know you may be wondering, okay, well, what does that mean, eligible borrower in default? So if your loans are eligible, so it depends on the types of loans that you have, but if your loans are eligible, then you'll be temporarily be able to receive or regain access or the ability to receive student aid. So if you are someone who has gone through the Fresh Start program it's been determined that the loans that you have, even the ones that are in default, are eligible, then yes, you will be able to temporarily receive federal student aid so that you can have an opportunity to go back to school. One of the things also that they said related to that is that you may even be able to receive other government type loans, because typically when you're on the default list, they you show up in this system, and the system that you show up in prohibits you from being able to get any other type of federal government loan, whether it be FHA, or whatever the case may be. So if that is the case, with this Fresh Start program initiative, you very well could be eligible to receive aid again and possibly regain eligibility for other government loans. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that information because I thought that it was important to do. But if you're eligible for the Fresh Start program, you'll be able to access your federal student aid again. You could apply for federal grants. You could also apply for federal loans if you want to be able to go back to school. I worked for a nonprofit 6 years. Will I qualify for the PSLF? So great question. So again, it depends on if your nonprofit has a 501c3 status. So if you are able to confirm if your nonprofit has a 501c3 status, then yes, you can be eligible for PSLF, or yes, your employer will qualify you for PSLF. Let me say it that way. And if you are unsure if your nonprofit organization has its 501c3 status, you could check with your employer themselves, or you could leverage the IRS's tax exempt charitable organization search function that will allow you to search charitable organizations, tax exempt organizations, either by name or by EIN, and you can search it that way to get the confirmation. If your employer is a nonprofit, but it's not a 501c3, then that means that you would have to determine what your employer provides in terms of service. And it has to be one of those qualifying services, whether it be emergency management, public health, teacher, school, anything related to school counts. Law enforcement, I believe, also counts. So there's a whole list that's on under the application that you'll be able to check. But you want to make sure that if you work for a nonprofit that does not have a 501c3 status, it has to provide one of those qualifying services in order to be eligible. That's the important piece. Let me see if there's another note that I have on here that I want to be able to share on my slides. Here we go. Perfect. Notifications. The Department of Education has said, due to the flexibilities offered under the limited PSLF waiver and also this rare opportunity to have those IDR adjustments and all of that stuff starting to count, there's a huge volume of PSLF forms that are coming in, as well as consolidation applications. So they said that it will take time for the PSLF forms to be processed by the PSLF servicer. So they want you to make sure that you exercise a little bit of patience while they work to process those forms as well as make the adjustments to your account. They said if the processing of your form is not completed until after October 31, 2022, you will still receive the benefit of the limited PSLF waiver because your form was already submitted. So it says in the meantime, you may receive several auto-generated communications from PSLF's, their servicer system, to inform you of intermittent actions. And these intermittent actions are: the employment has been approved, the transfer of your loan is complete, or your consolidation has been processed. So as these items happen, you're going to be getting notifications. And then, of course, once they begin to update your accounts based on the IDR adjustments that they're making, as well as the other adjustments that they're making under the limited waiver, you will receive updated notifications related to that. They did say that they want to suggest and recommend that folks make sure that they check their MOHELA status. So there is a new feature on MOHELA's site that allows you to see your status. So I shared this yesterday, and I'll go ahead and share this again. But if you go to mohela.com, there is going to be a drop-down section under PSLF that will allow you to select PSLF form status. When you click PSLF form status, it will give you the option or the opportunity to put in your social security number. It will also allow you to put in your date of birth, and it will also prompt you to put in your last name. when you submit that information, you click submit request, it will give you a real time, real live status of your PSLF application or any of the forms that you've put in. So make sure that you leverage that as an opportunity by going to mohila.com. Mohila.com. This takes me to another question that I want to remind people of. There was another question that I received yesterday, I believe, around someone indicating that Mohila said that their PSLF status was canceled. So if you come across a situation where your statuses are changing and you see something that says canceled, it could be one or more things that may be going on. It could be that you submitted a form, but then, and they received that form and you realize, oh, maybe I made a mistake, or oh, maybe I didn't fully complete it, or maybe something is missing. So you send in another one. So when you send in another one, they now have to process that new one. And so maybe the one that they had on file is the one that they're marking as canceled. So it could be the timing between when you go in and check it. Maybe it's an overlap of a form that you submitted within a short period of time. So they're canceling the one that you recently submitted to override it with the most recent one. Or it could be a situation where it could technically be some type of system glitch. There were some scenarios where I've heard that people who got that status that said cancel, they ended up calling Mohila to find out why did it say cancel. After elevating it up the chain, having several people look into their account, it was determined that it was canceled by mistake. So they had to do some type of fix on the back end. So not to scare you, but I want you to think about your situation. If you know that you did not submit multiple forms and you're seeing a status that changed to cancel, then you might want to give Mohila a call, even if it takes them 2 hours to pick up the phone. So that way you can make sure that it wasn't some type of glitch where it was canceled inadvertently. So if that's you, take the time to make the calls. Take the time to make the calls. I could cry. My loans went from 32,000 to 4,000. Are you serious, Lady Yearby? Oh my gosh. Lady Yearby, I would love, and you could let me know if you would be okay with this, but I would love to interview you on my YouTube channel, the Debt Demolisher TV. If you are up to it, only if you're up to it, because if your loans went from 32,000 to 4,000, I would love to hear what got you there. What is the link for the teacher forgiveness? So the link for the teacher forgiveness, let me pull that one up because I know a lot of people aren't talking much about that, but all right. So the Department of Education has an article on their website that talks about the 4 loan forgiveness programs for teachers. So the student loan forgiveness options for teachers are as follows. We already talked about public service loan forgiveness. So if you work for a state, if you work for a nonprofit organization as a teacher, you can qualify for public service loan forgiveness. And again, as I was explaining, that it allows you to be able to have your remaining student loans on direct loans relieved, dismissed, discharged after 120 qualified payments. The next one is the teacher forgiveness. What you need to know about the teacher forgiveness is that it's up to $17,500, which I said, of your direct or your FFEL or your subsidized or unsubsidized loans after 5 complete and consecutive years of teaching at a qualified school. So what does this mean? You must have been employed as a full-time teacher at an eligible school for 5 complete and consecutive academic years and at least one of those years must have been after 1997 through 1998. There are certain highly qualified special education and secondary mathematics or science teachers that can qualify for up to $17,500 in forgiveness. Other eligible teachers can qualify for up to $5,000. Parent Plus loans and Perkins loans are not eligible to be forgiven under the teacher loan forgiveness program. Anytime that you spend teaching to receive benefits through AmeriCorps cannot be counted towards your required 5 years of teaching. To maximize your forgiveness amount, you can apply for teacher loan forgiveness forbearance, which will mean that you will not have to make any monthly loan payments. However, interest will still accrue. Borrowers who have a loan balance that is greater than the teacher loan forgiveness amount that they are applying for are not eligible for that type of forgiveness. So that means that if you want to apply for the forbearance, they're not eligible for that type of forbearance. So if you want to be able to apply for the forbearance so that you're not having to make payments while you teach, then your loan balances cannot be in excess of the relief amount or the discharge amount or the cancellation amount or the forgiveness amount, which is $17,500 or $5,000, whichever one you qualify for. You can apply for teacher loan forgiveness. They have a full application there as well that is available. Very simple. It's an 8-page application, but it's very simple. So I'm going to end up doing a demo to show you guys how that works as well, because I did promise that I would do that. The other type of loan forgiveness for teachers is the Perkins loan cancellation for teachers. So this forgives up to 100% of your federal Perkins loans if you have one. And that's if you teach full time, but for low income schools. If you teach full time for low income schools, then, and you have, of course, federal Perkins loans, then you can get 100% forgiveness related to that. And then they have state-sponsored student loan forgiveness programs. Of course, it depends on which state that you live in. There is a searchable database that you can be able to look for based on the state that you're in to be able to give you that information. So this was a lot to cover. This was one of the series that I had promised to put together for the teachers. So I will make sure that I do that so that folks who are teachers can kind of know, because there's a lot of details behind it. Okay. Sounds good? Sounds good. The Debt Demolisher TV with Sophia Melone.